You should know what today's topic is, I imagine. Do you remember what we did last time?
Nope.
What do you mean, no? Oh, come on. No, you're just messing with me. You have to remember. At least the basics of it. Come on, it was part 1 of 2. We're doing part 2 today.
Something soup stock, not Kerensky though, and
Okay.
uh,
I will try to give your brain a refresher, all right? I'll poke you in the brain.
something about Comcast. And,
Yes. Okay, I'm going to give you a poke in the brain with a cattle prod, all right? Do you remember White Jerome?
Yeah. He's my Wigga.
Okay, do you remember his actual do you remember his actual name?
Yeah, White Drum.
Oh my god. No, Blake, Jerome Blake, okay? We are doing...
Yeah, Blake Drum. Middle name White.
You know what? Sure, that's canon now. Why not? Okay. So, this is the Word of Blake Part 2. Everything goes horribly wrong. The first video was essentially just going over the Comstar Schism, where the Word of Blake came from. It was a much drier, probably much longer video than this one's gonna be, thank God, because I trimmed this one down a little bit. And it went over how the civil war between Comstar and the Word of Blake began and developed, how the Word of Blake established itself and built up their insane crusade and all of that. And we ended off right as everything was about to go horribly wrong. This video is going to be all about war crimes, crimes against humanity, crimes against nature, crimes against God, crimes in general, and all the wonderful things that the Word of Blake got up to during their little kerfuffle. Today, we are talking about the Jihad, the best era in BattleTech's history. I hate this era. I hate every single one of our channel members for making me do this. This is just drudging up all of my endless hatred for Clicky Tech and the writing of that era, and you guys suck. I regret putting this option on there for you to pick, and I regret that you picked it.
Once again, you do this every single time. You give them an option that you don't want to do, and they have picked it without fail every single time. I don't know why you continue to do it.
You know what the stupid thing about it is every single time, every single one of them turns around and they're just like, hey, why didn't you do the other ideas instead? Every single time. It's like 90% of them will vote for the dumbest possible option. And then afterwards they're like, hey, you should have done a video on the Warhammer, or hey, you should have done a video on like the Thunderbolt or something. And it's like, those were options in the last poll, and they decided. I'm gonna tear my hair out. Anyway, I love our channel members. They are great and generous patrons who support our endeavors, and I am ever grateful for their efforts. Thank you very much. Corporate tech support will now disconnect. This is not an AI voice. Goodbye.
And that's the end of the video. Oh.
Anyways, before we get into things, generic greetings. I'm Sai. Welcome to Science and Sanity. My co-host is Steve, loyal content minion and meme fodder. We welcome you to the stupid. Enjoy your stay and protect your brain cells. Also, like and subscribe and all that other desperate... I don't know. You got anything to add for the intro here, Steve?
Some hype the video.
What does that even do?
I have no clue. I've just heard like 8 people say it, so do it. I think I think it's the like new trending thing. That's how they sort. I don't know. I found like one video from like Jingles, and I dumped like everything I had into it, and I ain't looked at it one since. So.
Okay, fair enough.
Apparently you get points for like watching videos or something. Don't really know.
Alright, so do you remember where, like seriously though, do you remember where we ended off, or do I need to give you like a refresher of the last couple minutes of the
yeah, in the BattleTech universe.
Why are you like this?
Because you require me to be.
Okay. We ended off right at the 4th Whitting Conference. We didn't go too much into detail about that, but that was the conference where everyone voted to disband the Second Star League. They're like, yeah, it's not working, space government can go die, we're gonna go back to our smaller independent states, and they did this with a vote of no confidence, just after they had invited the Word of Blake and the Taurians to join. The Word of Blake believed that it was their destiny to rule and all that divine garbage, right? So the dissolution of the Second Star League was not received well by them, at all. In response to this, the Word of Blake was about to chimp out harder than anyone else in human history. And that brings us right to the start of the Jihad. The exact start date is kind of up in the air and depends on what specific military engagement you want to peg as the starting point. It was sort of like a World War II situation where some people said 1937 because Japan invaded China, some people say 1938 because Germany and Czechoslovakia, and the majority opinion is like 1939 when Germany, did a Poland, because that caused the spiral into everyone joining the giant cartoon dust ball. It's the same thing for the Jihad and BattleTech. You could technically say it started during the Comstar Schism, since the Word of Blake and Comstar began fighting, running skirmishes and engagements right then, all the way through pretty much to the end of the Jihad. You could say that it was the establishment of the Word of Blake Protectorate in the Crucis March, or even go farther back to when they first got established in the Free Worlds League. You could even say it was the Allied Mercenary Command, which was a group of mercs who were like, Jesus Christ, the Word of Blake are insane and someone needs to gun these crazies down, and they started fighting back. But a common argument, or the common position I should say, is right after the Whitting Conference, because the Word of Blake lost their shit and decided that it's just time for genocide.
Very reasonable.
No, not really.
Nope, maybe it was.
No, it really wasn't. Like, the Word of Blake brought out the WMDs and went scorched earth, like, immediately. There was not even a serious attempt at clawing things back. They were just like, well, the Holy Prophecy fell through. I guess we're just gonna skip straight to the end times instead. And, oh god. So, the Jihad, in my opinion, starts with the glassing of two worlds. Because their
The glassing of Reach. Oh. Sorry.
Yeah, it was like Reach, but times 2. Because their last attempt at diplomacy, a very stupid one, was to send fleets of warships in secret to the capital worlds of the Federated Suns and the Lyran Alliance, New Avalon and Tharkad. There, the Word of Blake warships demanded that they return to the Star League, rejoin space government, or else we are going to irradiate your capital worlds. Predictably, they refused, because who are these upstart freaks to tell us what to do? And with all the context clues I've given you, you want to take a wild guess what the Word of Blake did in response?
Jihad.
Yeah, but like, come on, give me specifics. I know you're like barely paying attention.
They jihaded it.
They're jihading it? Really? That's
yeah. They're up. That's my favorite part of the movie is when they said it's jihad in time and jihaded all.
Okay. Do you remember the image I was searching for last time? The really happy genocide man. Do you remember that? It's in picture printer.
Yes, I have it in picture printer currently.
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. Do you want to tell me what's happening?
Terminator Man. It appears to be the glassing of Reach. Please tell me the planet was actually named Reach.
No,
I know we copied.
I told you the planet. I told you the planet names. New Avalon. I said the names like 2 seconds ago.
Nope. Please tell me there is a planet named Reach, though.
All right.
Not necessarily these two, but.
I'm looking it up right now because I don't know.
Okay.
There is not a planet called Reach, exactly that, but there is a planet called Far Reach.
Okay.
1 and 2. There's 2 of them.
Because I was watching Jengus's 40K Chaos Gate Demon Hunters thing again, and realized that the end battle of that takes place in the Dagobah system. Pretty good.
Okay.
Completely off topic, but
very off topic, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, the Blakeists immediately started an orbital bombardment of the worlds. The level of wanton destruction had not been seen since the First Succession War. Now, describing it as glassing the worlds is a little hyperbolic, but they did open fire and did an enormous amount of damage and caused an enormous amount of casualties. The Blakeists also moved immediately to repeat this strategy with major industrial and economic centers. They basically went, 1 was good, 2 is fun, but how about we go for the full run and just hit everything, every world, anybody can catch these hands. And that's exactly what they did. In the Lyran Alliance, for example, Hesperus 2, one of the biggest mech-producing worlds in the setting at the time, alongside worlds like Donegal and Coventry, very important worlds in the Lyran territory, were hit by Blakeist attacks. A mix of raids, outright invasions, covert assaults using their ridiculous secret agents and like evil Mani Domini cyborgs and stuff like that, as well as good old-fashioned orbital bombardments. All of that contributed to the near total collapse of industrial potential from these worlds. At the same time, the Blakeists also attacked the Fed Suns in the same way, but their biggest setup for an attack was the HPG whiteout. Do you remember what a hyperpulse generator is?
No.
I'll be honest, I'm genuinely a little disappointed in the lack of stupidity. I was fully expecting you to go like, it's a generator that makes hyperpulses, and then say something else stupid, but you really just hit me with the blank no.
What do you want from me, man? I mean, I do that on the last segment, I get yelled at. I don't do that on this segment, I also get yelled at. How am I supposed to win here?
I don't know. Do something funny. Poke you with a stick. Dance for the audience, ape.
Shit, my V.
But seriously, like, not as, like, do you actually know, or please, like, remember something about HPGs? We've talked about them, like, at least a dozen times. They're really important.
I'm gonna say it works like a sonar pulse, and anybody that's within any liquid, including air, just gets melted.
You know, I'll be brutally honest with you. That was 100% wrong, but I actually, that is an interesting question. I don't remember, because they use the crazy faster than light travel tech for HPGs to send transmissions ridiculously long distances. I don't remember if that's like an actual thing that you have to be worried about. Because I know normal Kearney Fushida drives, or the KF drives in BattleTech, if you're too close to them, they will gravitationally rip you apart when they jump. That's why you have to be like really far away from jump ships before they actually jump for safety reasons. HPGs make like a micro stable point to send a transmission through. I wonder if it would be possible to accidentally liquefy someone with that. Like, could you use that as a weapon? I don't know if that's ever been delved into, actually.
I'm so glad I could bring this thought-provoking discussion into this conversation.
That's an interesting question. I'm gonna shelve that one and then go look that up later, because I'm kind of interested in that
we'll
now.
get back to it in about 3.8 years, I believe, is...
Oh, no, that one's probably never becoming a video, just because it wouldn't be long enough, but I am going to look that up to, like, see what's around that, because I want to know if it's possible to turn your 6G radio tower, your sci-fi radio tower, into, like, a death beam and kill people with it. Anyways, HPGs are basically communications relays that send stuff faster than light at extreme distances. That's how everyone in the setting communicates long-term. The whiteout virus was something the Word of Blake developed and deployed, and it overwhelmed HPG stations with enormous amounts of junk transmissions, false information, and chaotic noise. So while the HPG network still functioned, it became almost impossible to get any reliable information or transmissions outside of one, maybe two relays distance. For the most part, the entire inner sphere outside the clan holdings became balkanized because of this, into very small areas where it may have been a dozen or fewer worlds in contact with one another. This worked so well because look, oh man, this part of the Jihad, I hate this part, okay?
It really worked so well, I mean.
Look, just listen, okay? This part of the lore is a nightmare. The Blakists and the Jihad was backfilled lore, okay? BattleTech went through the clicky tech era, everybody hated it, and they did a massive stupid time skip, and then a soft reboot with new factions and stuff, and it was an absolute mess, didn't work out at all, and then they had to backtrack, and they needed a reason why everything went to shit in like 50 years from what the previous writers had set up. So they had to create the Dark Ages and the Jihad and the HPG failure, and they had to explain how the Inner Spheres industry went poof. Look, it's better now, okay, after they've done a lot of work with it, but it's still pretty bad at a fundamental level. The actual way the Word of Blake managed to pull this off is an ass pull, pure and simple. You know what? I'm just gonna get the rant out of the way so I can get back to the lore later. The entire Word of Blake and Jihad sucks. It is bad. It is written badly. It is an ass pull of biblical proportions, and people who are fans of it are wrong. You have bad tastes. I will fight you on this. How did the Word of Blake build up so fast? Magic. 4 different types of magic. They somehow managed to subvert huge amounts of money and industry from the Free Worlds League and the Chaos March. How did they do this? Why did the Free Worlds League let them? Who cares? Doesn't matter. Incompetent leadership, I guess. Hi, pause. Future editing Sai here. So this is maybe the first time that this has happened on the channel before. I make mistakes all the time for various reasons. Sometimes I'm just very confident about being incorrect. Sometimes I just read things wrong. Sometimes I just forget things. This is maybe the first time that I read the lore, accepted it as canon, then a little while later was like, wait a minute, is that actually true? No, there's no way that's true. That must have been a fever dream. This is so ridiculous it had to have been a joke I read on a forum or something. And that's Thomas Merrick. You see, the Free Worlds League didn't just have bad leadership, Well, there's no polite way to say this. It's some Looney Tunes bullshit. Some classic Jihad writing. So Thomas Merrick was the Captain General of the Free Worlds League. Unfortunately, he was more interested in scientific and religious insanity, so he decided to join the Word of Blake, becoming what would be known as the Master, one of the most awful people that ran the Mani Domini crazy zealotous cyborg garbage, whatever, not important. Instead of just withdrawing from the Free Worlds League entirely, he created a perfect body double of himself to rule the Free Worlds League. But because the Free Worlds League is a meme and civil war is, I guess, just baked into their blood, the fake Thomas Merrick gradually became more and more aligned with the Free Worlds League and ended up fighting against the original Thomas Merrick to the point where they had a secret civil war between each other and eventually leading into more open conflict between the Word of Blake and the Free Worlds League as the fake Thomas Merrick tried to deny the real Thomas Merrick access to all the wealth and resources of the Purple Bird. And what in the actual, what? I hope you can understand, dear viewer, when I get things wrong about the Master and the Free Worlds League in this video, it's because I looked at how ridiculous it was, and my brain just couldn't accept it. It just went, no, that's not real, and decided to ignore it completely. Anyways, back to the rest of the video. Second reason, Terra. Apparently, they got those old preserved Star League factories working again. Now, I don't have a problem with this conceptually. Comstar did preserve some of the biggest and most advanced factories and shipyards in the setting. The Sol system is like straight up the biggest industrial hub remaining and was like one of the biggest of all time in the setting. It's just that those old factories were mothballed and not in use for like 300 years, only doing really small bits of work here and there. That's how Comstar maintained and built up stocks of Star League mechs like the King Crab and stuff to eventually use against the clans on Tukiyid. But here's the thing. The Word of Blake was feeding those factories from the Word of Blake Protectorate, worlds they had conquered, many worlds that were extremely resource poor and population sparse because they had been fought over by the successor states for 300 years, if not depleted of resources by the Terran hegemony and Star League before that. Where were they getting the materials to build anything? Who knows? To borrow a reference from my favorite content creator, I guess the Word of Blake they were borrowing Gothmog's Dyson Sphere or something. Who knows? Third, a magical cyborg army of Uberdeath. So apparently, in the short years the Word of Blake existed, they managed to co-opt old Comstar programs of cybernetic enhancements. Programs that never really went anywhere, and then turn them into workable, mass-produced warriors on scale. And on the surface, okay, yeah, makes sense. Checks out that Comstar would reactivate and start programs to produce super soldiers. You know, the clans had elementals, 8-foot-tall, 300-kilo space marines, but better, and that's pretty goddamn spooky. Having a counter is a good idea, but the Inner Sphere reverse engineered their armor and made the Inner Sphere standard, so cyborgs not really needed. But the Word of Blake apparently went on to create absurdly powerful cyborg special forces made out of fanatical, death-craving zealots in a fraction of the time. Okay, sure, why not? Whatever you say. And then, the secret worlds, the hidden five. Oh my god, I am going to scream. This makes me want to tear my hair out. So the Word of Blake, apparently, had multiple secret worlds, full of weapons and gear and resources to fuel their war. Okay, alright, you mean the same worlds and stockpiles and weapon depots that Comstar stripped bare to fight the clans on Tukiyid? The stockpiles that, alongside Mindo Waterly's aborted attempt to storm the Inner Sphere, were pretty much entirely empty? Those ones? Oh yeah, okay, sure. Definitely. No, it's not those ones. It's not those ones. The Word of Blake had even more, even secreter worlds, so they could pull the same thing Comstar did and just poof an army out of nowhere. The idea they could materialize an army out of nowhere was fine, because they'd been building that army up for 300 years. But apparently, not only did these special 5 worlds exist, one in each successor state to act as a base of operations for the Jihad, but for some reason, once the fighting broke out, Comstar proper didn't think it prudent to send a swarm of nukes to obliterate anything they couldn't secure. Like, what the actual fuck is the writing behind the entire Word of Blake? I am calm. The anger has passed. I've been rewatching the Dune movies. I acknowledge it. I accept it. It passes through me, and when it is gone, I am all that is left. The anger has passed. It is okay.
Why have you been spending the last 3 years of your life doing that? Hello?
There's other mitigating circumstances to why I haven't been uploading. It's fine though, all right? It's not. You're gonna make me angry again. Shut up.
Isn't that what I'm like here for? I don't know.
Suffice it to say, for every good story or piece of writing in this era of BattleTech, there's an underlying rot of how it was handled. And that's the underlying problem with the Word of Blake and the Jihad. Conceptually, they're fine. I have no problem with the ideas and concepts of the Blakeists chimping out legendarily after getting their prophecy dunked into the trash. The executions, however, is atrocious. They somehow go from a splinter faction of minor importance that influences the Free Worlds League to a military and intelligence force that can plunge the entire sphere into chaos in like the snap of a finger. They just poof all of this potential out of nowhere. At ground level, it's absurd. It's just bad. Stuff that came later was also bad, like whatever. We do need to get a little bit back on track. I believe we were something whiteout virus, HPGs, suffering issues.
Somewhere along there.
Yeah, somewhere around there. So the Word of Blake balkanized the entirety of the Inner Sphere.
Would have been so much simpler if it was simply one world.
It was like one world for quite a while.
Except for the other 5.
Oh god, yeah, don't remind me. We just finished the rant, Steve. We just finished the rant. Don't drag me back there. So, the Word of Blake balkanized the entirety of the Inner Sphere. And with the disrupted communications and general lack of awareness of the Word of Blake, like, the setting at large knew that the Blakeists were an issue and probably a threat, but it was generally believed that it was more of a Comstar schism and a Comstar issue than anything else. So the Word of Blake used that to get the jump on many, many worlds, raiding and destroying as much industrial and economic infrastructure as they could all across the Inner Sphere, strategically to remove their enemies' ability to fight long term, and religiously to bring the Inner Sphere towards total collapse to try and refulfill their prophecy of bringing humanity up out of the Dark Ages. Which is kind of insane when you think about it. Like, if your religion prophesizes that you're going to be the savior to like horrible collapsed Dark Ages and all of that, it's kind of insane that you're like, well, humanity didn't explode, so maybe we just have to cause that first.
We skipped over the part where we cause it. So obviously, since it ain't happened yet, that means that we have to make this happen. So then we can save everyone.
Yeah, it's a little bit psychopathic when you put it like that, but you know, to each their own, it's fine. They also engaged in never-ending false flag operations. You remember in the last video how I called Comstar like Olympic false flag collectors? They just loved doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the Word of Blake carried on that fine tradition by fomenting multiple brewing conflicts into full wars and directly causing multiple wars through false flag attacks. The Word of Blake would use one of a few strategies to accomplish this. The first was more false... I swear to God, I've said false flags like 5 times in the last minute, and my brain's not happy about that. Anyways, they would repaint their mechs to mirror the heraldry and color of a world's military units, like, as an example, copying the colors and paint schemes of Davian units known to be in the Draconis March region of their space, then deploying to nearby Draconis Combine worlds and committing unspeakable war crimes, like burning entire cities to the ground or setting off nuclear weapons to poison the environment, leaving no survivors. The local Combine forces would then lose their shit and attack the nearby Davian worlds, doing some heinous shit in response. And hey presto, another war is on. They would also heavily supply local resistance forces and rebellions all over the Inner Sphere. Outright civil wars, insurrections, planetary rebellions, and more popped up pretty much everywhere. In a lot of cases, because of the HPG whiteout, the central authority of most states didn't even know that fighting was happening most of the time, and had such a painfully slow reaction to it that it could take months or years for them to figure out certain regions were going to shit. One of the best examples was operations along the Free Worlds and Lyran Alliance front. A war broke out between the Lyran provinces of Skye and Bolin against the Free Worlds League Duchy of Tamarind. Said Free Worlds League Duchy was currently in rebellion against the Purple Birds and declared independence during the Jihad because of dickery from the Blakeists. So you've got an absolute mess where 2 Lyran provinces are invading a Free Worlds League Duchy. That duchy has declared independence, all the while neither side's top government officials actually know what the fuck is going on? The Combine is fighting the Fed Sons, the Capellans are fighting everything, the Free Worlds League is fighting everything as well, the Lyran Alliance is in chaos or on fire, the Chaos March area, the northern part of the Cappies' conquered territory, is now a Blakist protectorate and power base, mercenaries are taking over entire worlds in the chaos by necessity to maintain supply lines, and oh yeah, because the clanners are brain dead, they looked at the bar brawl currently going on across the Inner Sphere and went, hey, let me in on some of that, because the Jade Turkeys invaded the Ice Hellions while the Hell's Horses got in on the action too. What are you laughing at?
Just these names, man.
Look, dude, the clan front is a circus with all these names, okay? They're not my clowns, not my circus. I'm just the one explaining what's going on.
Simply going for high school team names out here. That's all we're doing. But like with some generic logo of like the Eagles or something.
Oh my god.
It's gonna be the Panthers logo for the Smoke Jaguar.
Just edit the Panthers logo on top of the Smoke Jaguar symbol. That would actually be kind of funny. You know what? I wonder if you would do that and like edit it the right way. If you could convince people, like gaslight them into being like, no, straight up, that is the Smoke Jaguar logo.
Yeah, this is one of their lesser used emblems.
Yeah. Then we've got the Periphery, where for the most part of the setting, they're just completely irrelevant. But here, during the Jihad, they're either falling into civil war as well, or battening down the hatches and trying to ride out the shit tsunami in one piece. Meanwhile, the Outworlds Alliance, one of the Periphery states, alongside their clan ally, decided to double invade the Fed Sons and the Draconis Combine.
What was their clan ally's name?
Oh shit, what was it? Give me a second to go look this up. I'll be back in a second.
I've stumped him.
Oh god, I remembered that they formed an alliance with a clan that like moved into their space, but I don't remember which one. Oh no. Clan Snowraven. There we go. That's the ones that did it.
Oh, so it's just the Baltimore Ravens logo on here, but it's white.
So the Outworlds Alliance and their clan ally decided to double invade the Fed Sons and the Draconis Combine at the same time, probably to pay them both back for invading them in the past. And the Circanus, I don't know how to pronounce this name. I'm just going to say Circanus and confidently incorrect. If anybody gets mad in the comments, feel free to correct me. It's just more engagement farming. Anyways, the Circanus Federation...
We do this on purpose.
No, I'm just stupid. So the Circanus Federation and the Marian Hegemony start trying to genocide one another for the crime of existing, as you do. And all of this is going on while the Blakists are going from world to world committing atrocities because lol, lmao, nuke go burr, and factory go bye-bye. Half of the Inner Sphere is at war, the other half is on fire, and all of it is up Shit's Creek in a leaky boat without a paddle. Everything is fucked. And the Blakists took over Solaris 7, so you can't even watch mech wrestling anymore. Why even bother living at this point?
They took away my real steel.
Yeah, you won't be able to watch the championship finals, said. Why even bother living at this point? It's over. So, the word of Blake kicked up an absolute mess. Like, I don't think even the Succession Wars were as chaotic. They were definitely more destructive than the Jihad, because the Succession Wars hit basically every world that was within fighting distance, even the capital worlds. But the Jihad was definitely more chaotic, because there was no set battle lines, nobody knew what the hell was going on, everybody was fighting everybody, and it was borderline impossible for anyone to get their feet under themselves for the first, like, 3-4 years of the conflict. And it took quite a while for them to eventually reestablish themselves, even with really big factions like the Wolves Dragoons and other mercenary alliances trying their absolute hardest to push the Blakists back. For the word of Blake's part, they were also extremely difficult to stop because they were operating more like terrorists than they were an actual fighting force or proper government. They were extremely sectioned off into cells, I guess, would be the easiest way. I mean, cell doesn't really account for how big these organizations were. Like, one cell could be thousands of battle mechs and millions of soldiers.
So we're just going with a sect instead of a cell.
Yeah, that's probably a better idea. So they were split off into a bunch of different sects along the old Comstar hierarchy. Comstar had like a council of people that were in charge of individual HPG arrays, and they made up the First Circuit. And the Word of Blake basically copied that hierarchy and then transferred it over to their new military sect. sects, where each person who once held that rank of controlling an HPG, they would get their own sect. And while all of them did answer to the Word of Blake higher authority and their government structure, when it existed, for the most part, they were basically allowed to operate completely independently. So one sect could be busy committing nuclear genocide on a ton of different planets, and literally one sect over, they could be doing super covert raids, information warfare, false flag attacks, and all of that, and none of them would be seriously coordinating with one another, besides telling each other, hey, the sun is going to fall on this planet, don't be there when it does. Don't go to the planet today, be somewhere else. What this meant was that while the Word of Blake was infiltrated several times by multiple different factions, they could never actually pin down their main plan or get any serious actionable intelligence out of them because they just didn't have any. Even if you fully figured out what one sect was doing, that meant nothing. The entirety of the rest of the Word of Blake was completely cut off from whatever their plans were. This even went so far as some military groups and institutions within the Word of Blake were completely separate. For example, the Mani Domini, however you pronounce it, those were the cyborg zealot warriors that had basically cut out their humanity to be the absolute arbiters of the will of Blake. They did not answer to anyone except for someone called the Unseen Master. They were completely outside.
Was he ever seen?
No, as a matter of fact, they weren't.
Okay.
How could you?
I just wanted to make sure we weren't misleading us there.
In before everybody in the comments is correcting me on that, not realizing it's a joke.
Well, actually, we have 18 pictures of
actually, Sai, we know everything about them, from how often they use the toilet to how often, yeah, like, no, whatever.
We know his exact schedule down to the second. He is, in fact, Sheldon Cooper. It is all mapped out.
Anyways, these cyborg warriors basically answered to nobody. They were completely their own thing. And a lot of the time, even the Word of Blake, like other sects, had no idea what they were up to, and would often get a little bit nervous when they showed up, because they were extreme zealots, and they operated with the ROM, which is like the super secret intelligence agency. So if they showed up, they're kind of like the black bag assassins, here to politically correct your incorrect view of the Holy Word of Blake. Or they're here to do some absolutely heinous shit in the background, like blow up nuclear power plants and stuff. So the Word of Blake was extremely decentralized. It made it very, very difficult to stop them. And the Jihad didn't really end, even with Operation Scour wiping out like 90% of the Word of Blake, because these individual sects just disappeared into the inner sphere. They would just disappear to the hidden worlds, they would blend in the local populace, and even after the official end of the Jihad, the Word of Blake is still up and kicking, like to the present day of BattleTech. There are microcells and tiny fanatics that are still around causing problems to this day, even though at this point, it's like a single person that's just fanatically loyal to it. They also made incredible use of everything from kidnapping to assassinations and more. One of their favorite tactics were assassinating or disappearing people that would potentially stop their chaos. In the last example I gave of like them doing a false flag attack dressed up as the Davians, if someone realized, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. We were fighting mechs with this color scheme and we damaged some of them, and yet the unit we're attacking is at full strength according to our old intel, so where did they get all these reinforcements? Something's not right. And then the commander realizes, oh hey, wait, this wasn't the Davians, someone else attacked us, and then the Word of Blake would immediately slit his throat because nobody can know the truth. They did a lot of that as well. The Word of Blake also got more desperate as the years went on and it became obvious that the tide had turned against them, and they started using some incredibly horrific tactics, some very funny tactics.
I think those are the two sides of the same coin. I mean...
Okay, not really. The horrific tactics was like, hey, we're going to use bioweapons and chemical weapons to depopulate an entire planet because lmao.
Okay, but from one perspective, that's unbelievably funny.
Who would, you know what, the Word of Blake would probably find that really funny.
Exactly.
Yeah, fair enough. On the other end, they reinvested very heavily into land air mechs, those stupid transformers that could turn from a mech into a plane, and they were not good mechs. I want to be very clear with that. The line of 3 Word of Blake lambs that they built were not good mechs. However, they were very funny to fight on the battlefield because most enemy mech warriors would just be profoundly confused. Imagine you're fighting a Word of Blake mech unit, and then they're heavily damaged, you're winning, you're pushing in on them, and then all of a sudden it fucking mechazords into a jet fighter and then flies away mid-combat while you're looking at it, and you're just like, what the fuck was that? What did I just see? There was a lot of that. So lambs made a comeback because of the Word of Blake, and they were mostly a battlefield meme. It was like more confusion than anything else. On a slightly more scary end, the Word of Blake also experimented a lot with AI. They resurrected a lot of old Star League and a lot of old Black Ops AI programs from across the setting's history, resulting in mechs like the Revenant. I need to look that up really fast because that's a quad mech and I need to check if that's the right name. Otherwise, people are going to destroy me in the comments.
I mean, it's going to happen anyway, regardless. So
yes, it is the Revenant. Okay. So the Revenant was a quad mech that the Word of Blake built, and it was entirely autonomous. It was based off of a lot of the old AI tech that the Star League had used for their AI defense fleets, where the more of them you got together, the scarier they got. Like, the faster they would react, the smarter they would fight back, the more clever their tactics became, and they fought like machines, which means there was no fear at all. If charging a line of 10 mechs would result in certain death, they would absolutely do it as long as there was something they might get out of it. Like, let's say there's 20 mechs crossing a ravine, and it's absolutely guaranteed that it would die, get just eviscerated trying to run out there and engage them. The Revenant would absolutely attempt that if it thought that it could blow out the supports on the bridge while doing it. A lot of human pilots probably wouldn't be that eager to run in and get themselves killed, even if they might take a bunch of enemies with them.
it's just because they aren't passionate enough about their job here.
Well, the Word of Blake was certainly passionate. So, yeah, the Word of Blake was horrible. Also, with the cyborgs, I'm pretty sure they literally removed the part of their brain that lets them feel empathy.
That would make sense. They should do that, yes.
I'll be brutally honest, I don't know if it's actually necessary. Like, the people they turned into those cyborgs were already willing to literally die and do anything for the Word of Blake, so I don't think they had any empathy to begin with. I don't think that was really a problem.
Yeah, but you just gotta make sure.
Yeah, I guess. Anyways, the Word of Blake eventually met its official end with Operation Scour. The Jihad functionally began in 3067, and it would take until 3078 for them to finally be dealt with. Operation Scour began in 3077 and was basically a massive coalition of the entirety of the rest of the setting, like the clans, mercenaries, all the great houses, everybody got in on this and fought the Word of Blake anywhere and everywhere that they found them, eventually wiping them out from pretty much every planet. And again, they didn't get all of the Word of Blake. A lot of them did escape and would continue causing large-scale problems for years to come, and some of the extremists would hang around until the current day in the setting, but for the most part, come 3078, they had been eradicated from every world they controlled and functionally destroyed en masse. It was only the scant
Does that
few...
include the Secret Five?
Yes, actually. Most of them were found and obliterated. I think out of the Hidden Five, 4 of them were eventually found and functionally leveled to dust or taken over. And I think, I might be wrong on this, as of right now, the 5th one has either just been found in the story, or it is still secret. But I'm not super up on the current lore, so I don't know if it's still hidden. Last I remember seeing, it was still hidden, but its days are numbered. It's probably not going to last very long. And with that, the Word of Blake dies. Their fanatical religion functionally...
Yippee!
Yeah, I know, yippee, right? It only took billions dead, multiple worlds reduced to tombs, and uncalculable amounts of damage and destruction. Thank God they're finally gone. This did result in a few massive changes. Firstly, Comstar did become secular out of this, because the Word of Blake was basically all the extreme religious members. And once Comstar as a whole saw what the Word of Blake was doing, they were kind of like, okay, oh, maybe the religious part, not such a great idea. Unfortunately for Comstar, in the end, too much egg on their face, with the fact that they helped the clans and the fact that Mindo Waterly tried to take over the entirety of the Inner Sphere like an absolute moron, and the fact that Comstar spawned the Word of Blake, and the fact that Comstar didn't do much to stop them in the early years, choosing to focus on the clans instead. Comstar was not long for this world. With most of the Inner Sphere great houses and basically most of the Inner Sphere and periphery in general taking over HPG networks, what you've started to see is Comstar falling apart and being officially dissolved, as well as all of the factions taking over communications for themselves. So the end of the Word of Blake is also functionally the end of Comstar and the end of an era. Comstar was really the last vestige of the Star League trucking on. The clans failed miserably, and they do not in any way represent the Star League. So at this point in the storyline, with the conclusion of the Word of Blake, it really is the end of the Star League story. I don't think there's much more that the setting can squeeze out of it, and I think having more Succession Wars and continuing to focus on it, probably not a great idea, but yeah, that's pretty much it. It's the end of the Word of Blake.
My boy White Jerome, man. Can't believe the ride's finally over.
Dude, White Jerome would, actually go insane if he saw the shit the Word of Blake did.
It would have been worse than your rant. I mean,
Literally everything he hated, everything he stood against, the Word of Blake did 1,000 times worse than the successor states did. At least the successor states were just greedy, vacuous assholes fighting for power. They didn't want to destroy everything. They were just incompetent and kind of forced themselves into it. But the Word of Blake is like, no, we're actually gonna destroy all of humanity because fuck them, I guess. Absurd. Terrible. Awful. Operation Scour, which was the final alliance push to destroy the Word of Blake, that could be like a 4-part video series. There's so much written on that, dude.
Make sure you do not include that in the next Patreon.
I never will. I never will. It's not happening.
Thing. Yeah, well, I've heard that for a couple of things, and then we end up doing them. So.
Yeah, well, you know what? Screw you. You're on this ride with me. Neither of us can get off.
Fuck.
Yeah. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the video. Do you want to do the outro, Steve?
Thank you all for watching. If you stayed till the end, you were clearly the target audience, so don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the hype button. Leave a comment if you feel the need to. Please correct Sai on everything that he said wrong. And with that, goodbye.
Channel members.
They're there. This whole thing was a thank you for them.
Do the thing. Come on.
Oh my goodness. He's thank you to our channel members, our arms dealers, for making sure we have the weapons to conquer the world, unlike the Word of Blake. The coffee vendors for keeping Sai fully fueled up in his long writing sessions, and the food vendors for making sure I am fed and able to be here for these videos. Anything else that I missed this time?
Nope. You just gotta give one final goodbye so we can end the video. Come on.
And from us here at Science and Sanity and our boy White Jerome, may his soul rest in peace. Goodbye.
Okay. Congratulations. I let you do the intro and it wasn't totally awful. Great ending. Good job.